Here we are with our scene setup, and we're going to be doing a camera animation with our scene. I've rendered out just a still shot just to see how my setup is looking with the water and the sky and the rest of my scene. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'll go ahead and minimize my render. So I have my camera right here, camera 1, and I've got show safe frames on, so it actually has the camera perspective all set up and ready to go. And then I have my scenes all lined up. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and select our camera, and I can just click on the camera here. If you have any issues selecting the camera or it's just hard to select it, you can always go to the 3ds Max. So I could go up to one of my file menus and find select object by, or I can just press H on my keypad or keyboard so that I can find my camera and the target. So these are all your list of things. I can just boil it down to that I don't want anything but the cameras showing. So I've got camera and my target. So I can select my camera. Now I've already got an animation set up here. You can see on my timeline I have 0, a keyframe at 0, keyframe at 100, then I have a keyframe at what would be 119 and 120, and then keyframe at 200. So if we look at our camera view here, we have the camera coming from underneath the water, coming up through the water, and it just has a nice little ease in to 119. And then it dramatically shifts to my next shot, and then my camera moves from there to frame 200. So first things first, I'm going to select both my camera and my target because I have both of them that have keyframes, and I'm going to go ahead and delete all these other keyframes so that we're at scratch. So there's no animation here. Now, typically the default for the timeline is 100, so to change that, we have the time configuration button over here in the bottom right corner with all these other icons for the camera. So I'm going to click time configuration. So we have here 0 for start time and end time. Normally it would be 100. So what you're going to do is you're going to change that to 200, and that keeps the end of our timeline beating 200. So there's a few other shortcuts and things we could do, but we're just going to keep it short and sweet. So moving forward, we've got our timeline now set up, 200 keyframes. Now what we need to do is select our camera. First things first, I'm just going to do camera 01, and I've got it selected here, and you can see my target is this blue line that is around the door here for the house. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to take this camera and kind of move it in. So first thing, I need to go to somewhere in here, maybe 90 frames, and I need to turn on auto key, and it's this little button right here that you can just easily click auto key on. So at 0 frames, if you don't have a keyframe here, what you can do is just hit this key button to set key, which it sets a key saying this is the position I want the camera to be in. Then I go to frame 90, and what I'm going to do is just move the camera somewhere, maybe like here, and then I'm also going to move it up. So that looks pretty good right there, kind of framing it between the mountains and the tree here. So we've got our house right in here. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do, we have that. We can see the camera now actually coming up and zooming in. So I'm going to go to frame 110 And I'm just going to slightly move it up just a little bit, so it's still kind of moving up, coming to a stop. And then at frame 111, I'm going to move the camera to a totally different position. So maybe I'll start with right here, and I'm going to go to 200, and I'm going to move my camera over. Maybe about right here. And that looks pretty good. Now right now I'm just animating the camera, and I could go ahead and do the target as well. So it's going to be kind of hard to select it with all this geometry, so I can just hit H, bring up my select from scene, select the target, and click OK. Now we have our target selected. So at frame 110, I may want to set a key so my target doesn't change in the beginning. So here's where I want the target, and then I'm going to go create another key there. I'm going to go maybe just to see what it looks like, I'm going to move my target a little bit. Maybe just have the mountains in a little bit. So my target is animating as well. And so I would have to decide, do I need my target looking somewhere else, or I can go from looking at the water to panning up. It kind of looks like a neat angle there. So there we have our keyframes now. So depending on your scene, you may want to animate your camera certain ways or animate your target certain ways so that you can get some good angles and frame your shots. So from here now, I would go to render setup. We can leave 640 by 480. I've only got a single render, so I'm going to change that to active time segment. And then we need to save this out, so file output. I'm going to select my desktop and name this scene setup, and then put my name. And we could do an MOV, but this is going to take a long time to render, so I'm going to just select AVI for this and hit save. The quality is 100, that's fine. It's got the compressor for this one. You've only got 3 choices, so we're just going to leave it at the default. Hit OK. And then we would make sure our camera view is selected, so I have this red line around it, or orange or yellow depending. And I'm just going to hit render now, and it will start rendering it frame by frame by frame. So we'll wait for this to render and come back and see what it looks like.